my personal, and this is just what I do for myself, is I'll look hands, eyes, hands, hands, eyes, hands. And what that does is a lot of people will keep their hands here. If they're in their pockets, I take note, right? I look at the hands, I look at the eyes, because you can tell a lot of it's intention from the eyes, and then I look back down at the hands, because if we've gotten closer, the situation may have changed, right? But also in the process of that, looking at hands first, then up to the eyes, and then back down to the hands, I see all of this. The best answer to violence is to not have to deal with it at all, right? And a lot of that starts with this timeline. Krav Maga, it encompasses a lot when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to self-protection. And the problem is, and I see this a lot in videos, I see it in classes, I see people training this, is that they always train the worst case scenario. Once the lock is completely in, once the weapon's already out, and all that kind of stuff. And good Krav Maga should be to the point of you don't get attacked. And that can be awareness of like, I see you, this is kind of shady. I'm not going to put myself in a position where, you know, we'll have to go hands. When it comes to punch defense, when it comes to choke defense, when it comes to all the defenses, right? I should not let it get to the worst place, right? If you're going in for a front choke, and the mic's here, so we're going to be kind of careful, but like, if my Krav Maga is good, we should never get to this point. Now, obviously we have the defense for that, right? To where I'm like, and then I'm here. But if your Krav Maga is good, if it's legit,
I'm not,
you should never get
close
there.
that distance.
Exactly. I should already be like here, right?
And you're not saying you shouldn't train these things. It's just
you should definitely train them, because I mean, nobody's going to be on it 100% of the time, right? It takes a lot of training, it takes a lot of awareness, and ultimately that's where you want to get, right? But I mean, we all have slip. The reason why there is an industry for self-defense and self-protection is because, you know, I mean, people, there's a lot of people that aren't prepared. There's a lot of people that aren't aware, and sometimes you get caught off guard, right? That's why there are victims. When somebody goes looking for a victim, they look for somebody distracted. They look for somebody who can't fight. They look for somebody who, and a lot of it is presence, right? Like I'm here 100%. And I'm open, and I'm like all this kind of stuff. And, you know, but if I'm here, if I'm on my phone or, you know, whatever, right? I make myself into a good picking for a victim.
Or even if not that you just not paying attention, if you just look timid, you don't look confident.
Exactly.
That's an identifier for somebody who's a predator.
Exactly. Because predators, they want easy prey, right? They want somebody that doesn't look like they're going to fight back. That isn't capable of fighting back, and somebody that's going to be really easy to get what they want, right? Because at the end of the day, they want to go home too. Right. So you have your resource predator, which is like they want something from you, right? I want your wallet, I want your keys, I want, you know, whatever. So they're chasing that resource. But then you have that process predator where like they are after the process of committing the violent act, right? So the process predator, that's the guy you really got to look out for, because he kind of disguises himself as a resource predator. Like, give me your keys. All right, I got your keys. All right, now I need you to come over here. Right? That's where stuff starts getting really bad, right? But again, both of those guys, unless it's like a personal vendetta, both of those guys are going to be trying to pick somebody out that's going to be easy victim. They don't want to work. Exactly. They don't want to work.
That's why they're life of crime anyway. They don't want to work.
Exactly. They don't want to work. They don't want to get caught. They dang sure don't want to get hurt, right? Because if they get hurt, then they can't get what they want. In saying all of that, that's one of those things that should be taken into account. Obviously the awareness, the presence, and all that kind of stuff, but also realizing that when you're training these things, that you want to make sure that you're not always focusing on getting yourself into the worst possible scenario, right? When it comes to a choke, when it comes to a full Nelson, when it comes to, you know, all these different types of holds and points of disadvantage, you don't want to allow yourself to get to the worst part before you start acting, right? I watch these videos where these people are like really, really compromising positions. And the problem is that no matter how much you train, right? If you allow it to go so far, eventually you're going to find that point of no return.
Yeah, right. So talking about jiu-jitsu students, if you get in position of a submission, once it's sunk in, you really can't get out of it, right?
No, I mean,
a rear naked choke, you're not going to get out of rear naked choke that's sunk in.
Exactly, 100%.
It's very rarely that you could pull something like that.
100%. And you know what's funny from a Krav perspective, and just because you brought up the rear naked choke, if you've seen any of our videos before, we've kind of addressed this. The point that I always make, because Krav does have a defense for that type of position. Obviously not from a jiu-jitsu standpoint of where it's like fully locked in with the hooks and all that kind of stuff. Because again, once you get there, you're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, apples to oranges.
I mean, you're
screwed.
choked out in seconds.
Yes,
anyway,
exactly.
If it's in there, you know.
But that goes along the same premise of like there's this whole timeline of how that attack gets sunk in. That starts from right here, right?
Yeah.
There's this whole timeline of you have the chance to act.
Right.
And you have the chance to act. But once it gets to a certain point, right, there's nothing you can do. And I can't tell you how many times and how many different ways I've made the same point of just the rear naked choke of like, you know, if you can catch it before it's like completely locked in, when it's in the process of getting locked in from a standing position, because baseline, you know, all that kind of stuff, there are things that you can do that can kind of put the odds a little bit more in your favor. Never once have I said that it's 100% no matter what. If you do this thing right here, you're going to get out of it. It doesn't happen that way. You know this, I know this, you guys know this. However, right, and it kind of goes back to what we said in one of the previous videos. You know, it's better to have something, right, than to have nothing at all, right? But one of the things that you have to pay attention to is every attack starts from somewhere, and it's never right here.
Already there. Yeah.
Right. The attack starts from here and even farther, right? And good Krav Maga should encompass the ability to deter this attack
from the furthest way possible.
From the furthest way possible. Because if you're letting it get to the worst possible situation, you're already done, right? You're already done. You're training yourself to be a victim. I can't tell you how many times that I would be dropping into a class or something like that, and we would do just a basic choke defense, and I would see people doing this. Oh, and then they start acting.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, you know, as with FMA, as with any other type of martial arts system, you have to have that baseline, right? I'm going to teach you this choke defense because if for some reason you happen to find yourself in this position, right, you'll have something. Like, okay, I'm going to be right here. You're going to put, right there, right? That's Krav too, right? I didn't let you get that choke out.
Yeah.
I was able to defend the choke by not even letting it get there.
Happen.
Exactly, right? You don't want to train people to be good victims. And you see that all the time of like, will be like, oh, I get to do my Krav now. Why am I lightheaded? So when you get to talking about the timeline, you can go on and on and on. And we do in this video. So if you want to know the answer to all these questions that we're bringing up, stick around to the end. It's going to be worth it because I'm going to show you how to train this at home or with a partner. We've talked about how to get yourself in that bad position, right? Let's talk about how to keep that from happening. So bringing in the timeline, like I've said, it starts with all this space in between us, right? We're walking in the street. And
it might not even be a threat yet.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Not a physical threat, but you know something's fishy about it.
Exactly. So the awareness comes into play, right? I'm looking at my area. I'm scanning my environment. And you don't have to be like super tactical about this. You don't have to be like super paranoid because at some point tactical and paranoid kind of go hand in hand because I'm sitting here doing this. And you see the guy in public all the time, right? He's got the cargo pants on, and I got cargos on, but it's different. He's got the cargo pants on. He's got like 17 knives on him, and he's just sitting here doing this, right? The whole time. But you do want to pay attention to what's going on around you, right? Any intelligent individual should be knowing exactly what's going on around them, right? And there's a little bit like you don't have to get super crazy about it. I don't have to know your whole life story to be able to just see you, right? Your head's up, your phone is put away, right? And you're just paying attention to what's going on around you. That is your first step of the timeline, is general environmental and situational awareness. Okay. Now I start picking up on the threat, right? I see you. The warning bells are going off. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but something
There's
is
some kind of
telling
interaction
me,
here.
exactly. Something is telling me to pay more attention to you. It could be a look. It could be the fact that, you know, maybe
body
you're
language.
Wearing, body language. You can be wearing a jacket. Your hands are in your pockets, or, you know, because I'm scanning everything, right? I'm looking at, I'm not just like, you know, I'm not getting tunnel vision, but I look at your hands, I look at your shoulders, I look at your eyes, right? Because I see a lot from that.
If I'm just intent, and then you see, you know, you see somebody, they're giving cues away that you don't. They don't even know.
Exactly.
I don't even know.
But a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that, especially if they already have it in their mind that they're going to commit this act, right?
Yeah.
Because what do people do when they've made up their mind to do something? They get hyper-focused, right? So you're already hyper-focused, and it could be subtle because you could be a career criminal, right? And you're really good at what you do because you're still out here doing it, right? But it could be very subtle, but I have to pay attention to these things. And as soon as I start seeing this, I need to start initiating, essentially, my defense. And that could be as simple as bringing my hands up, right? And, you know,
creating distance.
Exactly, creating distance, but in a way that's intelligent. I don't want to go backwards, right? Because you can go forward towards me a lot faster and a lot more efficient than I can go backwards. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go off to the side, right? I'm going to circle, right? I'm going to create space, but I'm going to do so in a way that is going to...
Off the angle. angled.
Off the angle, and you're going to have to readjust. And that also gives me another thing, because if I'm creating distance in a way that you have to readjust, and you readjust, that's all I needed. That's all I needed, because now I know that the gut instinct, the feeling that I'm
confirming what you thought.
Exactly. And so now that starts kicking into overdrive a little bit more, but I have to pay attention to that, and I have to start making action. Now, some Krav guys will tell you that you need to go ahead and put up the fence, right? Yes and no, because in some ways, this is really good. If we're in this space right here, this is really good.
Yeah.
If we're all the way out here,
this is doing nothing.
This is doing me absolutely nothing, right? But that doesn't mean that I can't bring my hands up. I love this position right here.
No, so now this is under the assuming that there's no identifier that I'm actually trying to be aggressive toward you, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, then you would put his hands up.
Yes.
Just not only to signal to so everybody else sees that I don't want no trouble.
Exactly. and that's why I'm doing this, and I'm not doing this.
And not doing that, yeah, right.
Because the second, and especially if you're standing like this right here, right? If you're doing the pre-fight interview, right?
Yeah.
And every self-defense system talks about this, so I'm not going to break it down into in-depth detail. But if you're doing the pre-fight interview, right? And I'm already like this, or I'm like this,
yeah,
right? Who's the aggressor here? When people have got their phones out, or when somebody else is looking on,
100%.
Who's the aggressor here?
Hey,
I'm just, exactly. Well, now all of a sudden I'm the bad guy, when in reality I'm supposed to be defending myself. Right. So you have to be intelligent about this. Like I said, everybody has their own hand positions and stuff like that. I like this right here.
Yeah.
Because I have my hand, like nothing is like closed in. I have this up here, or you can go here, or whatever. You can do this right here. But my hands are already in this fence, right? Especially if
it's already halfway there, more than halfway there.
Exactly. I have something up blocking my face, essentially, and I have that other one that's coming up that I can use if I need to. Right?
Protect your
weapons. But I'm doing so in a way to where I'm not threatening, right? Especially in one of the other aspects of Krav is de-escalation, right? We don't want to fight. We're perfectly capable of doing it. We can go as far as we need to, right? But we don't want to fight. I don't want to fight, right? That shit hurts, So if I can de-escalate the situation, hey man, I don't know what's going on, right? There seems to be an issue here. Let's see if we can't figure this out, right? If I can de-escalate the situation from right here, this position right here, that's all that gives off. If that's what I need, right? I don't want to fight. I'm sorry if I offended you, right? You can de-escalate however the situation calls for, but you want your body, right, to give the same message as anything else, but you're also wanting to be ready, right? So that's part of the
threatening,
exactly,
but ready for the threat.
Exactly. And now, like, I catch myself just like anytime I talk to anybody now, it doesn't matter if we're like buddies or whatever. This is how I stand, because this is, it's just ingrained.
It's in there. It's ingrained, right? Yeah.
It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. Actually, one of the guys that I work with, I was laughing at the other day because he told me that anytime we talk, I'm always bladed. And not like with a knife in my hand, but like the position is always bladed. It's like, he's right, and I'm like that with everybody. It's crazy. Even my kids, I'm like, hey.
Well, that gives off a lot too, in a sense, from an apprentice standpoint, of what their intentions are, right? Their weighted stance. If like if you're standing out, I wouldn't assume you're about to attack me, right? Now you can mimic that. Maybe you are, but you're hiding it.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Compared to if you're here, then I kind of see the aggressiveness there.
The chest opens up, the hands you start getting into
about
that.
To pounce, right?
Exactly. And if you know to look for these things, right, the sooner that you pick it up, the better that your overall defense is going to be, because I have the option to do all these things before I actually have to go hands-on, right? Now, if it's one of those things to where you're just absolute intent, like say I've already cut my angle, we've talked, and I'm like, hey dude, like this isn't, essentially this is not what either of us want to do, right? And you still proceed, well then I can escalate more. And in that escalation, I still have time. You're not necessarily in contact distance yet, so I can call attention, right? And what that means is, if it's a situation where there's people around, I'm going to get loud. Hey guy, I don't want to fight, right? Hey, I don't know what, a criminal, right? I can say anything. But what that's going to do is that's going to cause a lot of attention to come to this position right here. One of my favorite words, and it's not because I'm a firefighter, one of my favorite words is fire. Because you can say no, you can say stop, you can say all these words, and people, especially nowadays, are just going to keep looking at their phones, right? But if I say the word fire, everybody is going to look. Everybody, right? So it doesn't even have to, I can start and end with that. Fire, fire! And people are going to be like, what the fuck?
Who's this crazy guy?
Exactly. But it's going to cause attention to come
It's
right
going
here.
to bring
a lot of
attention,
times, if you're a criminal, that is not what you want. As soon as people start looking on, you're going to take off.
100%.
Exactly. So that is another thing that I can use, right? However, again, not everything is 100%. What if we're in an alleyway? What if, like, I'm walking to my car and I decide to cut through this alleyway, and it's like, oh, crap. Now it's just me and you, right? Doesn't matter how loud I yell the word fire, right? It's not going to stop you because there's nobody around to see it. Well, then you have other aspects. As you close that distance and say I'm like moving, I can start attacking, right? I've already told you to stop. I've told you to back up. I told you I didn't want this. I told you you didn't want this. Whatever.
It's game on now.
And you keep coming, then it's game on. So it kind of goes into that. I want to use my longest weapon to the closest target. If you're coming in, I'm going to go for the knee, right? Or I'm going to go for the groin, but I'm going to do something to maintain space, to create this space, right? I don't want to let you get to the point where you're already putting hands on me. And by this time, I've already asked you to stop. I've already asked you to back up. You're not listening. This is the next
There's no cooperation there whatsoever. So
exactly.
You got to protect yourself.
Exactly. And here's the thing. I can explain this, right? If for some reason we do get into a scuffle, right, and I kick you or whatever, and for some reason I get asked about it later, I can explain. I created distance.
The steps of de-escalation.
And that's why you need to incorporate this, because not only are you trying to keep yourself safe, that's the ultimate goal. I need to stay safe, right? But also, if for some reason
legally
something does, exactly, and legally, like the legal side of this is a really big side, because you're always, unless you get really lucky, going to have to answer for what it is that you did, right? And if I'm in this position where I just go ham, right, and I just drop you, and I can't explain why I felt the need, why I was justified in doing this, well, then I'm kind of messed up there, right? So in this timeline, I've asked you to stop. I've cut angles. I've tried to maintain the space. You have not, right? So I'm going to go into the kicking aspect. So again, me, I want to strike vulnerable targets, right? So I'm not going to kick you in the chest, because that's not going to do anything for me, right? You're a big guy. You can probably take that kick and still keep closing the distance.
Everybody's going to go down on a knee.
Exactly, exactly. If I kick you in that knee, right, it's going to buckle and all that kind of stuff. If I kick you in the groin, it may take a second, but that pain's going to find its way to you, even if you're adrenalized. Now, here's the thing, right? And this is a Krav myth that I want to bust right here and right now, right? All the Krav guys always start, begin, middle, end with a kick to the nuts. Now, here's the problem with that, and I tell everybody this. Adrenaline is a funny thing, right? As vulnerable as a guy is right there, when the adrenaline's going, he is not going to feel it, not initially.
Right.
There may be a little flinch, because that's muscle memory, right? If we're just standing here talking and I act like I'm going to go for it, see, I saw it, right? You flinched, right? That's what guys do. However, it's not going to be the pain that's stopping you. You're going to get that flinch because that's what we're programmed to do. But if I kick you there, right, and the adrenaline's going, you're not going to feel it. You're going to keep coming. So you have to keep this in mind, right? If I kick them, bam, and I'm thinking, because I trained this in my Krav class 500 times, that I kick them in the nuts and they go down, and you don't go down, that sucks for me, right? So it's a good target, but
it's not the end all be all.
It's not the end all be all, and it never will be.
I tell that in our self-defense classes for women. You know, it can be a target, but don't rely on that. Because some people pay to get hit there.
Monks,
because they like it.
Monks,
right?
So, they do that.
You know,
I've seen those videos on YouTube, like the what is it, Iron Crotch or whatever.
Yeah.
These guys are smashing themselves and they keep going, and it's like, But 100%. Like it can be a very valuable target if the situation, but you cannot depend on it. And really, when it comes to Krav Maga, you shouldn't depend on anything, right? Every counterattack, every defense, everything, I should always be willing to keep going if I have to, right? I have to be able to adapt to that situation, because, what happens if we're here and say there's, we're in an alleyway, right? So there's a wall here and I kick you in the nuts and I'm like, oh man, oh crap, right? He's still coming at me. Right? You have to be able to keep going. You have to continue the fight as far as it goes, right? Which brings me into that next distance. If for some reason, either I was just neglectful, right? And I didn't get that kick off, or say I did get that kick and I kicked you in the nuts, right? Because that's how I trained in my Krav class.
And I liked it.
Yeah, and you liked it and you kept coming, right? Now this distance has closed a little bit more, right? But we're still not at the point where the choke's on. So there's still things that I can do from here, right? If your hands are down,
going for the choke.
If your hands are down, I'm going to start attacking, but I'm also going to start working my way back around. One of the things in Krav is we try to teach our students not to stand toe to toe and go head to head.
Right.
Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter how many counterattacks I know, how many hammer fists I can do, how many knees I can do. If you and I are going toe to toe,
the same thing. It's mutual damage.
Mutual damage, and it's going to come down to whoever gets that lucky shot.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be that lucky shot.
Whoever's
on the
got the stronger chin.
Exactly. Exactly. Now the problem with that is that's a huge chance that I'm leaving my life to. Right.
Yeah.
So we teach people.
But not only that, it's what if you're a woman and it's a guy?
Yeah,
you're not
exactly.
Why would you teach a woman to go toe to toe
Exactly.
with somebody?
And the thing about Krav is that it should be for everybody. It should work for me as much as it works for you, as much as it works for my wife, as much as it works for my daughter.
Right.
If it doesn't, it's not Krav.
Right.
It's just not, right?
There's techniques for
everything.
Every variation of sizes.
And there's principles. There's principles that work for your smallest, weakest, and I don't mean weakest as a sexist thing or anything like that, but your smallest person all the way up to your biggest person. The principles are what guide Krav Maga, and as long as you're adhering to the principles, the timeline, the cutting the angles, the getting to the outside, as long as you're adhering to those principles, you're adhering to the system, right? And the system was built for this kind of thing, right? So when I'm in this hand distance, right, I don't want to stand here and do this. Right? Because again, we're going to be sharing a lot of mutual damage. And if I'm, a 13-year-old little girl going against somebody of your size, it's not going to do me any good.
Right.
So what I have to do is I have to get off to the side. Now, notice what I did here though, right? I'm not just doing this, what you see in the videos of just all the crazy, like coming out of nowhere counterattacks, right? I have to fight intelligently, right? I have to do something about this so it's no longer an issue for me. So what I'm doing is I'm coming here, right? And now I can still, right, attack. And eventually what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work my way all the way around to this place right here. Now, here's the thing. Let's be realistic. You're not going to let me get there.
Right.
You're not just going to be like, oh man, he went off to the side and now I'm just going to stand here.
Shit.
No matter how many demonstrations you see that in, that's not how it actually goes, right? So as I'm going off to the side, you're turning, which is why I'm still going, but I'm still attacking at the same time because I have to overwhelm with aggression and I have to get to the outside. I have to, right? Even if we get like later on in the timeline to where the choke's already on, right? I'm still throughout my defense working my way to that outside because the point remains that from here, you can hit me with everything you have. I can hit you with everything I have, but you can hit me with everything you have.
Right.
Here, you're down to about half, whereas I still have full. Here, you're down to 2% where I still have everything. Right? So the more that I get to the back, the better for me. Right? So I'm always cutting those angles. I'm always trying to get to the outside.
I would even go even further. Usually what I'm teaching some self-defenses that way is not only when you trap, right? I'm still keeping that forward pressure. So I'm always. You're not just circling around.
No. I'm driving.
You're pushing me back as you're circling.
I'm driving
because that keeps me occupied, off balance, and behind time.
And it's and the ultimate idea should be displacement, right? Your body is right there, right?
You want to occupy my space.
Exactly. And here's the thing. So I used to train with this guy. His name is Alan Predolin. He's out of California. He used to be really high up in Krav Maga Global. He was actually one of the first team members that I trained with. And he used to have this thing, like we would go through our defenses and we would go through our counters and all that kind of stuff. It would be one of those situations where it's like, I've gone through this and now I'm doing my counters and it looks exactly like this. And he would stop everybody. He would stop the whole class. He's like, I don't care what you do, right? But you have to make this realistic, which means that if I'm doing my counters and you're not moving,
right,
you're doing a shitty job, right? That is not what you're supposed to be doing. What you're supposed to be doing is even though we're training safe, right? We have to mimic that fight, right? And one of the things I hate to see more than anything else is this right here.
Right.
None of that is real. None of that. I'm out of range, right? Even if I reached and put myself completely off balance and completely compromised, I'm still not going to hit this guy, right? So what I need to be doing is I'm in that proper range, but also look, right? Did I hit you?
Displacing me.
Yes, I displaced you, but I didn't hit you. So we're training safe, right? But any one of these counterattacks or any one of these attacks, right? I'm throwing in a way to where if I just extend a little bit, it's there, right?
Yeah.
But I am completely displacing you. That is about as real to the fight without making that full contact.
Right.
And obviously without all the gear and everything, right? Without making that contact, that's about as real as you're going to train. Right? And when it comes to fighting, again, Krav is not, it's not sport fighting. It's just not, right? Yeah. We don't fight for the same reasons. That's not saying that one's better than the other because at the end of the day, I don't really care. Train something, enjoy it, whatever, right? But the focus on the fight is completely different. In a sport fight, right? I'm trying to beat you. Yes, essentially, I'm trying to tear you down, and I want to beat you as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You know, but both of us are going home.
Yeah.
Right. If we're lucky, we're at such a level to where both of us are getting a payday. Awesome. Right. Both of us are going home. I'd really like to win, but we're both going home at the end. Right. In Krav Maga, right? That's not what we're training for. We're training for life. Right. If we have to, we're not just going to go hands on for like no reason. Right. It's just not going to happen. If we have to go hands on, it's because my life is being threatened. Right. So I cannot fight the same way, which means that I can't waste anything. I can't take damage. I can't allow myself to get in a compromising position, because if I do, I don't get to go home. That's about the worst case scenario, right? So when I'm training these things, it has to be done with that mindset of like, I'm not going to stand here and do this. Just not, because there's a good chance I'm not going to go home. I have to do this. I have to train with a real punch. I have to train with a real kick. You know, obviously partner preservation is really high, right? But I have to train realistically, because if I don't, ultimately it's either me or the people that I care about that are going to pay the price. Right. And then once you get into the point where you have students, then they're going to pay the price and you're the asshole.
So question in Krav, because I never really trained fully in Krav, but I understand it's more of an empty hands, right? Would you say, like, if in this scenario, you would do the damage enough so you can retrieve your weapon?
Yes, 100%. Right. 100%. So the idea should be one of two things, right? I need to get to the point where I can safely get your weapon. Safely get to my weapon if I do have a weapon.
We're not fighting for it.
Exactly. Exactly. Or I need to get to the point where I can get away. Right.
Yeah.
Now, if I do have a weapon, and this is one of those situations where it does call for a weapon, right? Say I have a knife or, you know, whatever, or a gun, right? People like to always say, well, what if I have a gun? Awesome. Having a gun is great as long as you're licensed and you're legally able to carry it. Having a gun is
trained to use it.
Exactly.
I'd say a good 90% of people aren't fully trained to use a gun.
Not at all. Not at all.
Just owning it doesn't save you.
Unfortunately, that's not the way it works. You know, and having a gun is great. However, you have to be able to get to it, right? And this is one of those situations where it's gonna call for that escalation of force.
Get to it where I can't get to it as well.
Exactly, because what happens? What happens if I don't train this kind of thing, and I have that gun, and that's my first instinct of we're right here, and I'm going for that gun, and now you have the gun,
and then I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Where did all my crop go? It's gone.
Now you're fighting for the gun.
Exactly.
Not your life. Fighting for your life too, but
no. And now the stakes are a little bit higher because now there's a weapon involved that I brought into the fight because my lack of training didn't allow me to get to that position, right? And Krav 100% does that, right? If we're in this position right here, if my awareness has absolutely sucked and we got to the point to where we're right here and there was nothing else that
I'm attacking you.
Huh? We're right here, right? Yes, we're right here, right? And I have to use that weapon. I have to be able to cover this gap to be able to get to the weapon.
Before I can.
Exactly. If I go straight there, I'm screwed, right? So I may end up having to, going back to what we were doing before. And then once I've counterattacked enough to take your mind off of what's going on, then I create that distance and then I draw, right? But you have to be able to bridge that gap.
Right.
Because if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what weapon you have. You can have a damn bazooka, right? And it's not going to be able to help you because we're here. Right. And this is my argument to all the people that bring up the gun. Yes, it's 100% applicable in a self-defense type of scenario. As long as you're licensed, as long as you're legal to carry it, and as long as you know how to use it. However, not every self-defense scenario starts from
right there,
way out here to where I can safely draw this gun. You know, sometimes.
And that's the thing. If you're already that far, what threat am I if I don't have a weapon?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So there's really no threat.
None.
Certainly not a reason for you to pull a gun unless I give you that reason.
There's no justifiable threat.
Right.
And that's one thing that you have to remember. You have to remember the justifiable.
Even if you're that far away, because we had this discussion at one of our self-defense courses. You could be over here, right, far away. Even if I'm threatening you, I'm gonna kill you, right? And you don't see a gun and you don't see a weapon, you still can't pull that gun and shoot me, right?
Not at all. Because if I do, who's going to jail?
I have to show proof of capability of physically harming you before you can do it.
100%. So now we've gotten into this position, right? I've already addressed, catching the hand, getting off to the side, going off with counterattacks and stuff like that, right? If for some reason, right? And again, there's a lot of ifs here. If for some reason my awareness sucks, I was looking at my phone, whatever, right? Doesn't matter how you got here. The point is that you got here, right? If for some reason the hands are coming up to choke, right? I need to be able to redirect, right? Because now I can't go full offensive, right? Because your hands are already there.
They're in the way.
Exactly. So what I need to be able to do is I need to address the threat, right? And that's another one of the principles in Krav Maga is you have to be able to address the threat. It doesn't matter the immediate threat, right? It doesn't matter how many counterattacks I know. It doesn't matter how many different self-defense moves I know, right? If I'm not addressing the immediate threat, I'm not doing anything to better my situation, right? So as this is coming up, this is a straight line attack, right? One of the best things that we do for a straight line attack is a redirection, which just means it's a simple parry and I'm going to the outside, right? I'm parrying in, right? Not overreaching or anything like that. I'm just parrying in. I'm getting off the line, right? We talked about this in a previous video with a gun. I'm getting off the line. Essentially, I'm controlling the weapon because I still have the barrier up. And then I'm coming in and I'm following up with counterattacks, right? Now, again, one of the things that you need to think about is you want to make sure that your follow-up is necessary for the situation. You could be a drunk uncle, right? Yeah, we're at a party. Exactly. You could be a drunk uncle. We could be at a party and you can go to do that same thing. And hey, I need you to come sit down. You've had way too much, right? But see what I'm doing here, right? I have this right here and I'm letting you know you need to stop, right?
Get off me, man.
What that does right there.
I just escalated.
Yeah, you escalated. And now it's on. And now it's on, right? But it's one of those things where like the hand comes up, right? And I've redirected. I'm keeping that hand here. I'm telling you, you need to stop. There's a barrier up and I can follow up if I need to. Don't want to because you've had too many martinis.
If it's just somebody drunk and you don't know you don't want them touching you.
Exactly.
And I'm like, hey, bro,
it's time to settle down, right?
Yeah, sorry.
And then if it's not necessarily a life-threatening situation, then I can go back to the timeline of like creating that distance,
right?
Turning off to the side. It's like, hey, go, right? Exactly. And then if that's as far as it goes, then that's great for me. But that's also one of those types of things where essentially I'm training the same movements that I would if it was not that situation. If you're somebody who's really trying to hurt me and that's coming up, then that's right there. And it's the same movements. Nothing else changes, right? Because again, we need simplicity. If I teach you 500 ways to do one thing, are you going to remember any of it? You're not at all, right?
It's going to be one good one.
Exactly. So that's what we have to have. Like if it's a rounded attack, we have one principle that we abide by. If it's a straight attack, we have one principle that we abide by. But it works for whatever type of situation that you're in, right? It's an inside defense with a counterattack. Now, sometimes that counterattack is like, hey, son, no, that's not what we're doing today, right? And sometimes that counterattack is a full-out punch to the throat, right? Yeah. But it's the same movements, no matter the situation.
Same control.
Yes.
This is the control hand. The other one's either demolishing or reassuring.
Yes. I know it's been a rough day, but
control and friendly hand.
Exactly. But I'm not having to train all these different things for like just one thing. That stuff just drives me crazy, right? So then you have to where it gets a little bit closer to where the inside defense, right, is not applicable. And maybe it's both hands. It could be one hand, maybe it's both hands. So then I start going into here, before it actually gets to the throat, then I start getting into where it looks like the actual defense, right? So the end goal, right, if this choke is right here, the end goal, the defense is going to be, I'm going to address the immediate threat, right? And then I'm going to counterattack and better my position, right? Now, as it gets closer, that becomes more applicable because I can't inside defense that because look what happens. Right. I'm choking myself now. Your hands are already on. And now, because I'm starting to resist, what are you going to do?
I'm going to turn
exactly.
it off.
Exactly, right? So I can't allow that to happen. So now that's when I start going into the defense, right? And then, then the choke itself can escalate farther and farther to where it's like straight on the neck, and then it could be against the wall, and then it could be down on the ground, or it could be with a push, right? If you're pushing right now, I'm here, right? Or it could be like, oh, now we've fallen down. It keeps escalating, right? But the overall goal is that I should not let it get to that point right there, right?
We're already way behind time.
Exactly. So behind time. And again, nothing is 100%. And if I let it get to that point, right, the chances of success are they're just slimming up as the farther along we go, right? I promised you that I would teach you how to train this. So how would we do this, right? You get yourself a partner and you put yourself on the far outside of the timeline, right? And then you just train it, right? So we're going to start with a lot of distance, right? And now the only thing that I want to focus on doing is reading his body language, right? Reading his body language. I'm looking, right? Maybe we're moving around. I'm looking, right? And that's where I start, okay? Another good way to drill this, if you don't have a partner, and I do this, my family does this, I know a lot of people that do this, when you're in a parking lot, look around and see if you can identify how many different license plates you see, right? If I'm walking through, I'll look, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, right? I'll look at all these license plates, but what this is doing, it starts off as a game, right? But what this is doing is it's getting me used to paying attention to different things around me. Exactly. Paying attention to details. Tim Kennedy, right? He runs those sheepdog courses. And I was actually watching one of those videos, and he has his guys like paying so much money for this course. And that's one of their trainings is they're out there in a parking lot looking at license plates. How many Texas did you see? Well, I saw 4. Awesome, right? It's a really, really good tool. So if you do have a partner, you start off with a whole lot of distance. And right now, all I'm doing is we're just walking around, and I'm just looking at him. And I'm not like staring him down, right? Because if
just noticing physically what it is. And it could even be an imprint.
Yes.
Some gun, knife, or whatever.
Well, and I have, so my personal, and this is just what I do for myself, is I'll look hands, eyes, hands. Hands, eyes, hands. And what that does is a lot of people will keep their hands here. If they're in their pockets, I take note. Right? I look at the hands, I look at the eyes, because you can tell a lot of it's intention from the eyes, and then I look back down at the hands, because if we've gotten closer, the situation may have changed, right? But also, in the process of that, looking at hands first, then up to the eyes, and then back down to the hands, I see all of this, right? Which gives me a pretty full picture of what's going on.
So you're more or less, you're scanning hands to eyes, not just going hands, eyes, eyes, but scanning the body. Up and down. Yeah,
and it's really quick. And I do that with everybody. Plus, there's a lot of people out there that if you don't make that eye contact, they see that as a form of weakness.
Yeah.
Right? So I look at the hands, and then I look at the eyes to let you know, I see you.
I see you.
Yeah. That's one of those things that you can actually train out in public and not be offensive with it. You know, if we're walking around, hey, fire, and we're in the middle of Walmart, right? It might not work out too well for me, right? But I can scan. I can pay attention to things around me. I can look at hands, eyes, hands, right? And it's not offensive, right? Well, for most people, right?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, if they make eye contact, you can somewhat tell their intentions there right off the bat.
Oh yeah,
right?
You can tell a lot.
Cool,
by
right? A lot of times, hey, what's up? They had nod,
exactly.
right?
Well, and so you can disguise a lot of your body's intentions, right? The poker face, the movements, and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really hard if you have that intent.
With the eyes,
to hide the eyes. And as a matter of fact, a lot of like profilers and stuff like that, that's where they'll look. They'll look at the eyes, because the eyes will tell. I mean, there's a whole science that goes into that, but the eyes is a big part.
Yeah.
Right. So with your partner going into the next part, right? Now they're going to start closing the gap, right? When he's closing the gap, I'm going to work on my being verbal, being loud, hey, hands, what? And I may do things like I may call out what he's wearing. Hey, black shirt, right? This guy right here, right? And I'm just trying to call out details to what, hopefully, if I'm in a public area, people are going to be able to.
Oh, it was a black shirt. Yeah, with a black shirt.
Yeah, and they're going to look for the guy in the black shirt, right? So you can do that, right? The next thing that I'm going to do is as he's coming in, I'm going to try to like kind of get offline, and then if he gets close enough to make contact with my leg, then I'm going to make contact with my leg.
If I'm threatening.
Yeah, if you're threatening, right? And you do have to kind of, because you do get that overzealous friend that's like he's walking around, he's like, hey, right? And then you lay out somebody who is actually trying to give you a hug, and now his like knee bends the wrong way, and you're the asshole, right? So you want to be careful with that kind of thing. But in a training type scenario, I mean, do what's fun. That's another thing. Have fun with this, right? We're trying to learn these life-saving skills, right? But there's no reason why you can't have fun with it.
So are you saying that they need to just train it all as much as like the actual defense?
Yes.
That's what we're saying. Okay. So instead of only training the choke defense.
Okay, so actually, yes and no. Yes and no.
Well, train each individual parts, right? Like
I think
you can't combine them all together. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
that's what I was reading.
And so ultimately that's how you want to train people, right? There's factors that kind of come into this because, what if you have, and I'm sure you, being a gym owner, I'm sure you've heard this 100 times. My daughter's going off to college. I need you to give her a 3-hour seminar so she can protect herself the whole time.
Yeah.
Right.
I've literally gotten calls like that. 100%. My daughter's going to college, and anything you can teach her in a short span of time.
In a week. You have a week. So if you're in that type of situation, right, to where it's like, you definitely want to bring up timeline. Everybody needs to know the timeline. It doesn't matter how long they're with you. It doesn't matter how much or how little time. They need to know the timeline because they need to know that I don't have to let you get your hands on me. So, however,
so for people who are not understanding watching, the timeline is the interaction.
Yes,
the full interaction.
The full interaction from the most amount of space possible, right, to the
where
least
we're
amount.
already in on it.
Exactly.
Getting there.
Everything that begins this whole scenario all the way up to the end, good or bad, that's the timeline, right? And the timeline will, if it's an attack, if it's a scenario that's going to happen, that timeline will start off to where things aren't bad, getting a little worse, and now it sucks, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to operate fully in this timeline and not just focus on worst case scenario.
Right.
Because again, if you focus on worst case scenario over and over and over and over again, you're going to let it get to worst case scenario because you're going to do what you train, right?
Right.
And here's a funny story about that. So you teach somebody how to defend themselves. You teach them the movements, and then you teach them to get away, right? I've trained with people that once the choke comes on, right, and you go through the defense and all that kind of stuff, you create space, scan, and then run. Now, here's the funny thing about that. I've been in classes where that was so ingrained to everything that we just did that people wouldn't even pay attention to where they were running. They would just run. And I actually called somebody out in class one time because they ran to the back of the room. They ran to the back of there was
They were
bathrooms.
trapped.
They were trapped, and they ran into the back of the room. And I said, "What are you doing?"
Right.
Oh, well, I
run.
created space and I scanned and I ran. Why are you running to where there's no exit? And it was like a light went off of like, oh my God, right? You will do what you train.
Yeah.
So if you train to always let it get here, and I'm gonna get, yes, I get to do my movements. Oh no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing at all, right? You're supposed to not let it get there. This is here. It's like a fail-safe, right? It's here in case stuff gets really, really bad really quick.
Right.
And for some reason, it doesn't matter because we're here, right? This is what the reality is. Go for it, right? But it shouldn't get there, right? So going back to the steps, right? I want to train each one individually. I do want to train the worst case scenario because I need, we all have bad days. I had a day the other day and I was in that type of situation where if somebody wanted to attack me, that was the prime freaking moment, man, because I was just not aware of anything that was going on. I was a space cadet. I was tired. I was whatever, right? And I'd have been easy pickings, right? We all have off days, right? So you have to know how to get yourself out of the worst case scenario because it might happen, right? But equally, you need to know how to not let it get there to begin with. Because if your Krav Maga only encompasses the worst case scenario, your Krav Maga is incomplete.
Yeah.
Krav Maga is about being safe, not knowing how to get choked and then get out of it and throw all these cool counterattacks.
Before getting there in the first place.
Yeah, I should never get there in the first place.